I left the bakery without looking back, though every instinct I possessed told me to turn around. For a moment, I considered correcting the error outright, gathering her things and removing her from that place, or perhaps installing myself in her spare room where I could watch over her properly. That she remained, at this very moment, in a room too small for her, beneath a roof that offered neither authority nor shelter, unnerved me in a way I didn't permit myself to dwell on. I understood her better than anyone walking this world, her habits, her pauses, the way she folded inward when the world demanded too much of her. My childhood was spent learning them, since the days when my only charge was to keep Lady Grace contained and out of reach of her own girlish silliness. Leaving her alone and unguarded went against every rule I'd ever lived by. But as I stepped into the street and lifted my eyes towards the commandant's house above the town, I understood what the position afforded me. From there, I could watch her every move, and nothing reached her without my knowing. The constable at the corner straightened as I stepped into the street, which was completely unnecessary. The town itself was inert, shuttered windows, empty pavement, a place already hollowed out by fear and compliance. There was nothing here worth guarding. Nothing at all, save for the one precious thing behind me. "You, come here." He jogged forward to me, and I lifted my hand to motion to the emptiness around us. Whoever planned the patrols had done so by map and habit, not by judgment, assigning men to corners that guarded nothing but rot and memory. "You are wasted on the crossroads," I said. "Take your post here in front of the bakery instead." I lifted a finger between us, meeting his eyes long enough for the importance of the order to settle. All I could do, though, was hope he wasn't a fool. I had little patience left for correcting mistakes where she was concerned. "If Miss Rowen needs anything at all, if she appears unsettled in the slightest, you send for me at once. And if anyone so much as troubles her, you remove the problem and notify me immediately. Do you understand me?" "Yes, sir," he said to me, saluting as he moved back to one side of the entryway and made his post. I took the hill towards the commandant's house with my mind already several steps ahead of my body. Thoughts crowded in faster than I sorted them. Logistics, timing, exposure, contingencies, each one demanding attention before the last settled. I was still cataloguing them when the house rose before me, covering the distance without registering it at all. There was no version of this situation I could devise in which Grace returned to England quietly. I understood that, but in all the plans I made over the years, I'd never actually prepared for it. A decent man might hope for obscurity, might wish to keep the woman he loved out of sight and out of reach. But decency had nothing to do with reality, and those in our position had never been afforded the luxury of privacy. England would want her seen. The public would want her accounted for, named, framed, and explained. And if I didn't decide how that would be done, someone far less careful would do it for me. I had not spent the better part of my life gaining leverage, capital, and influence to lose her to rumour and spectacle now. If her story was to be told, and it would be, then it would be told correctly. She would not be pitied or diminished. She was a survivor, a daughter of England who endured, who served, who returned unbroken. Royal blood prevailed where chaos failed to erase it. Yes, that was how we'd tell it. Alistair stood at the table when I entered, bent over a sheaf of papers, turning pages with the sour-faced impatience of a man who already knew what he would find inside. But I went directly towards the telephone. I waited years to make this call. I swore on my knees before Lord Blackmere and his wife when there was nothing else left to give them, that I would bring Grace home, or I would not return at all. Whatever else I had done in the years since, and whatever lines I crossed to make myself capable of keeping that promise, this remained clean. It was not victory, it was proof. I was about to deliver what I pledged to do, and in doing so, bring great honour to my house and my father's name. "Is the line secure?" I asked when I picked up the receiver. Without shifting his attention from the newspaper, Alistair said, "Straight to headquarters." I brought the receiver to my ear and waited while the line found its way upward, the delay marked by clicks and distant voices until the operator finally answered. "This is the Honourable Christian Ashcombe, Captain," I said. "Put me through to Blackmere at once." The line cleared after a few moments, and the butler answered. But I didn't acknowledge him beyond what was necessary, for this was not a message that could be entrusted to anyone but the man it was meant for. "It is Christian," I said. "I have an urgent message for the Earl." A minute later, I heard Edmund's breath shudder before he spoke, as if he already knew what this call meant and was suddenly afraid to receive it. When he said yes, it was not only his voice I heard, but the silence of Blackmere behind it, the long years of waiting, the room kept as it was when she left, a house caught between mourning and hope and never allowed to become either fully. I understood then that this moment didn't belong to the two of us alone. Every word I spoke now carried the weight of a family that held its breath. "I have found her, Edmund," I said, catching the tear before it could betray me. "She is alive." I closed my eyes and held myself still as Edmund begged me, "Oh, please, are you certain?" I'd faced gunfire with more composure than this. If I allowed myself even a breath too deep, I would come apart entirely, and I would not shame this moment by doing so. The sound of him, stripped of rank and practice and reduced to the man who buried a granddaughter in everything but fact, broke me. "I am," I said with a laugh, and, Lord forgive me, brushed my sleeve across my face. "I just had tea with her not 10 minutes ago." Princess Mary cried out her prayers in the background, her grief finally breaking loose now that hope had been given reason to exist again. "She is very well, and you will be glad to know she is under the protection of Colonel Pembroke in a little village called Hearthwick, only an hour or two from the capital." I turned towards the window, keeping the bakery within sight. There was work yet to be done with her, I knew that. But unlike the others who'd been returned half empty and afraid of what waited for them, Grace leaned towards the memory of home and family rather than away from it. She didn't resist when I corrected her. She listened, watched, and recalibrated as I taught her. Everything that had been taken from her sat close to the surface, waiting for permission to return. I laid the groundwork for it years ago, with our silly tea parties and pretend audiences with the king. All that remained now was to guide her through what came next, as I always had. Just as lovely as the last I saw her, though, perhaps a little roughened by circumstance. Nothing that cannot be set right with patience. Intelligence would want a photograph for proof of life, and I'm certain some ambitious junior officer might think it a good idea to leak it, but I would not have her reduced to something careless, caught at an unguarded moment, dressed for survival rather than scrutiny. Because this was not solely about Grace, it was about the standing of Blackmere itself, and I would not see my house cheapened by haste or indifference. "We will be on a plane home as soon as all the checks are completed," I said, "but I will send a photograph along to you as soon as I can." I understood well enough that the law might never name me a proper lord of the house. Titles had their rules and bloodlines their stubborn limits, but love was not diminished by what could not be granted, and neither was loyalty. I loved the house all the same, every stone of it, and I'd see it restored not merely in its members, but in story. "It is my great honour to serve Blackmere, my lord. It is no hardship at all." The line went dead on his end, and I set the receiver back in its cradle. I'd known, in some distant, unexamined way, how close I came to losing her forever. Knowing the margin precisely now was different. I turned back to Alistair then and crossed to the chair nearest him, tipping my thumb towards the telephone. "You can alert headquarters to stand down the recovery efforts." That earned his attention at last. "They will find no others," I said as I lowered myself into the seat. The teenagers were killed alongside their parents that day. 13 was the line. My hand fell from the arm of the chair in a shrug. Grace was spared only because she fell a day short of it, and because I gave a short, incredulous laugh at how much had hinged on something so paltry. Those heathen bastards believed her marked with magic, a local superstition tied to the streak of white in her hair. I had been summoned to plan a party, a controlled affair meant to steady the town and flatter headquarters. It should have been simple. Finding Grace had not been part of the equation. A complication, yes, but one I would have welcomed on its own terms. What I had not expected was how quickly the two would knot together, the private miracle colliding with public obligation until neither could be handled without the other. I let my hand pass back through my hair and then dropped it, the decision settling as the shape of the problem became clear. "We must handle this properly," I said. "We cannot afford to mishandle it. If this turns into a story, and it will, then we determine the narrative." What I came to arrange as a courtesy was already becoming something larger, and I would squeeze every possible ounce of leverage from it. In fact, I dare say by the end of this, you will be retiring Sir Pembroke of whatever patch of land you have always thought deserved a better steward. I paused, watching that truth take hold in him as well. "Grace's legend will be laid at the Crown's feet regardless," I said, "and His Majesty will look for the officer who made his cousin's return possible." I lifted a finger, reminding him that we at Blackmere had a very long memory. "You are well placed for that distinction, Alistair." He acknowledged the insinuation with a quiet laugh as he reached for the plate on the side table. Selecting a biscuit from the tray, he broke it in half before biting into it. "Good thing I have this unfortunate fondness for sweets," he said at last, brushing the crumbs from his fingers. "Is it not?" There was nothing to add that would improve the position we both found ourselves in, so I said no more about it. The pieces were on the board now, and for once they were all arranged in my favour. If I moved carefully, there was no reason I should not secure everything I ever set out for.